This presentation will cover the key components to writing a winning resume. In the following slides, we will review the main components of a resume, including content, format, and style. Examples of leadership, projects, research, and presentations will also be included. Gaining experience while in school through research, internships, jobs, and more is a key building block of a competitive resume. Before building your resume, review how important solid attributes and experiences are to employers. This slide illustrates some of the attributes or essential skills that employers have indicated they look for in their employees. Notice that the GPA is not listed among the top 10. Although GPA is important, it only tells an employer how well you did in the classroom, not necessarily how you applied the concepts you learned. It is therefore important to gain experience that will provide you with the essential skills employers seek. Identifying transferable skills involves looking at each job you've held to determine what skills you learned that could be considered portable, meaning they can apply to most situations. Merely listing a job title tells an employer very little about what the job itself entailed, and formal job descriptions are often quite different than the actual day-to-day work you do in reality. Even jobs that are not directly related to your major can provide a wealth of information if you look for the skill you learned as opposed to the task you did. For example, if you worked as a waiter or waitress, instead of writing the actual task of taking food orders and delivering food to tables, you would look at the skill you learned through doing this. Taking orders involves the ability to be accurate. Delivering food involves the ability to be efficient. The role of a waiter or waitress requires you to be courteous. So your descriptive bullet of taking food orders and delivering food to tables from a skills perspective might be written as accurately recorded customer orders and provided courteous, efficient service. Although your GPA may not be the only thing an employer seeks in an ideal candidate, it is still an important aspect of their decision-making process. Keep in mind that your GPA should match what is on your official university transcript. If your GPA is below a 3.0, consider listing both your major and cumulative GPA. Additionally, any other experience that would set you apart from your competition should also be included. A second major, minor, or concentration should be included, as well as any academic honors groups, study abroad, or student-faculty research. A good way to build career-related experience is through internships, summer or part-time jobs, or job shadowing. By your junior year in college, you should begin seeking out opportunities to gain practical experience that will provide the opportunity to apply the concepts you've learned in the classroom. Depending on your major, an internship may be a requirement for graduation. However, you should still seek out an internship regardless of whether it is required. In fact, employers are now beginning to look for multiple internships on a resume. The resume itself provides a summary of your skills, knowledge, and relevant experience. You may need to have several versions of your resume specific to each type of job you are seeking. Think about skills that are directly related to the position you seek. Have your resume reviewed often to check for spelling, grammatical, and formatting inconsistencies. One error could cost you an interview. Some formatting tips are outlined on the next slide. Although resumes have many different looks, there are some basic formatting tips that should be considered when creating your resume. These include length, margins, font, spacing, layout, bullet points, and type of paper. As a general rule, the overall length of a resume should be 1 page, especially while you are still a student. In certain instances, your resume might be 2 pages, but this depends on a number of variables, including the career field you are pursuing, how active you were in activities, clubs, or sports, and research or projects you might have done. It is always a good idea to check with someone in career services if you are uncertain as to how long your resume should be. Margins are generally 1 inch, but may be extended to a minimum of 1/2 inch if you have substantial information to include and want to try to keep it to 1 page. However, try not to overload the resume with information. This will result in a cluttered, difficult to read document. Fonts should be a combination of sizes. As a general rule, your name is a larger font, address is several sizes smaller, and the body of the resume would likely be a size 12 font for headings and an 11 or 10 for the descriptive text. Again, these are variable and dependent on many factors. Spacing should be consistent throughout the resume. Also, you should begin with a blank word processing document when composing your resume. Avoid templates since they tend to be difficult to navigate. Bullets should begin with an action verb. Refrain from referring to yourself using personal pronouns such as I, me, or my. The employer already knows the resume is about you. It appears as though you are bragging when referring to yourself in the first person. Finally, the type of paper to use when attending job fairs, networking events, or interviews should be professional resume quality paper in white, off-white, or gray. Refrain from using pastel or other distracting colors. The next slides will review the overall content of your resume. Examples of resumes may be reviewed in the Penn State Career Guide. A link to the guide will be provided at the conclusion of this presentation. The first part of the resume is the identifying information. This includes your name, address, phone, and email. Note that the address is optional. Many employers are more concerned with how to get in contact with you. Sometimes an address can work against you, especially if you are applying to a position in another state and the employer might not want to pay moving expenses. You should indicate if your phone number is a cell phone, since the employer will be more understanding of bad reception or lost calls. Keep your email professional. For students, it is recommended that you use your Penn State email, since this tells the employer you are currently in school. Keep in mind, however, that your email address will expire 6 months after graduation. If you are within a few months of graduation, you may wish to change your email address to another one, so the employer doesn't get an undeliverable message if they are trying to contact you by email. Here is an example of identifying information. Consult the Career Guide to see other sample formats for identifying information. The next section of the resume is the career objective. This is a concise statement focusing on the type of position you are seeking. This may be omitted if the position to which you are applying requires a cover letter. Here is an example of a career objective. Seeking a summer internship with Wilkes-Barre Connect. Notice that the objective mentions a targeted position, summer internship, at a specific organization, Wilkes-Barre Connect. You may wish to consider replacing the career objective with a summary of qualifications. Now you have to think. Start with some achievement-based statements, then add some personal and professional attributes that highlight your overall skill set. Here is an example of a summary of qualifications for a junior marketing major. It provides a snapshot of the key information the student wants the employer to know. Next, you will add your education. List institutions and degrees in reverse chronological order, meaning most recent first. Some information you might also include are minor, area of concentration, honors, study abroad, GPA, and relevant courses. High school should no longer be listed past your sophomore year. If you attended several colleges, these should also be listed in reverse chronological order. Here is an example of education involving more than one institution. Notice this person did not graduate from the first college attended and transferred to Penn State after one semester. In this case, the number of total credits completed and in what discipline are listed. Since this person did not graduate, the start and end dates of attendance are listed. However, this person did graduate from the current institution, therefore a start date is not appropriate. Remember, you are working towards a credential, therefore you should indicate when the credential is expected to be conferred. If it is in the current year or prior to actual graduation, you may include the word expected before the month and year. Once you have graduated, you will simply state the month and year of graduation. A word about coursework. Typically, coursework is listed only when you are a first or second year student seeking an internship, as it gives the employer a baseline to assist with what experience you may already have. The title of the course should be spelled out. For example, Introduction to Psychology instead of Psych 101. After sophomore year, coursework should be replaced with practical skills and experience. The next section of the resume includes work experience, both related and non-related to your major. The goal is to provide details of your accomplishments and responsibilities rather than a list of general duties. Numbers make strong statements and can enhance credibility. These numbers can show volume, percentages, and dollar amounts. General guidelines for listing information are as follows. List most important information first. More on this in the next slide. Keep order consistent. Use action verbs and keywords. Remember, avoid personal pronouns. Focus on accomplishments. Qualify and quantify. No lists of more than 6 bullets, as the reader loses focus. And try to limit text to 2 lines per bullet. Your resume is a living document. It will be revised throughout your entire career. Therefore, you might find that you will need to add some other headings to your document, such as practical experience, activities, honors and awards, memberships, academic highlights, and research. The order in which these headings are listed should be with the most important first. An employer will spend just 10 to 15 seconds looking at your resume. Therefore, you want to make sure you include the most important information in the top third of your document. If you don't capture the employer's attention in the first 10 seconds, they are likely not going to look any further. It is important to remember that even early jobs can show accomplishments or transferable skills you have acquired. Here is an example of some early jobs described from a skills perspective. Now that we've covered some basic components of the resume, the next slides will cover how to highlight leadership, research, projects, and presentations on your resume to set yourself apart and make yourself more competitive in the job search. The bullet points outlined on this slide are a recap of what we have covered up to this point. Before we proceed, it's a good idea to once again review these points. Remember, Your resume isn't about you. It's all about the employer's needs. Employers will only look at your resume for 10 to 15 seconds. Research the company and its industry. Tailor your resume to both. Point out how your talents and training meet the company's needs. Hiring managers want to see something that is easily readable. Be specific about accomplishments, punctuating them with hard numbers. Increased production, sales figures where applicable. You want to lay out a clear story of your work experience, education, and the skills you developed. The following slides provide examples of some headings you might wish to include to showcase your achievements. If you participated in the University Honors Program, this should be included on your resume and should be listed under the Education heading. Include dates of participation, a brief description of the program, and any relevant courses completed as part of the program. Remember, if you are currently participating in the Honors Program, the date would be month, year to present. If you are no longer participating, start and end month year would be listed. Use present tense for current participation and past tense for past participation. Here is an example of an honors program description. Note that it is listed under the Education heading as a subcategory and written in present tense since the student is currently participating. If you hold or held the title of officer in any clubs or organizations, captain or co-captain of a sports team, or a role in student government, these should be indicated under the heading of leadership. The following slides will show examples of various leadership roles and how to include them on your resume. The basic format for listing your leadership position includes the following: name of the university. This would only be listed once if all of your leadership roles were at the same university. Otherwise, you would name the university for any roles you held that were not at your current institution. The title you held, dates, and skills achieved in the role. Note that you would write your descriptive bullets in present tense if you still hold the position, and past tense if you no longer hold the position. In this example for a club president, notice that it is written in present tense since the dates indicate the person is still active. If this was not the case, the action verbs would change from present to past. For example, looking at the first bullet, direct and supervise would change to directed and supervised, and all other action verbs would be changed accordingly throughout. Here is an example for a club vice president. Here is an example for a club treasurer. Here is an example for a club secretary. Here is an example for captain of a sports team. Other headings you may wish to include are presentations, projects, and research. These would fall under their own separate heading. If you did several projects or presentations during your time in college, you might wish to change your heading to something more encompassing, such as academic highlight. The following slides show examples of how to include these on your resume. Presentations are listed as follows: the last name and first initial of all presenters, such as in a group project, followed by the title of the presentation, a brief description of what it involved and where it was presented. A descriptive bullet would be included if the presentation received any recognition. If you participated in Celebration of Scholarship, this might be included on your resume as a presentation as illustrated here, or as research, which will be covered in an upcoming slide. Many times, students struggle with how to include practical experience on a resume, especially when an employer indicates they want at least 1 year of experience for an entry-level position. If you did not do an internship, class projects are another good way to show an employer how you learn to apply your coursework to the real world. A class project would be indicated as follows: name and location of college, name of course, including semester and year of project, title of the project, roles you played in the project, and descriptive bullets on significant achievements or results. The next slide shows an example of a class project. Notice the descriptive bullets for this project are written in past tense, since the project has already been completed. If you were currently working on this project, you may also include work that has been completed thus far and add what the final result is planned to be. Research is listed in the same format as a class project, with the exception of the role you played in the research, name and location of college, name of research performed, and several descriptive bullets. This is also an option if you participated in Celebration of Scholarship. If you did research-based travel, such as part of the honors program, it would be included under the research heading and would be written as follows: university, course name and semester, where travel occurred, type of research performed, and brief description of research. Here is a general template for research-based travel. Here is an example for multiple research projects. Note that Penn State is listed only once at the top since both projects were done for the same institution. As always, projects should be listed in reverse chronological order. A note about memberships. Be careful when listing memberships with organizations that might be deemed controversial if they have little to do with the job you are seeking. Employers might make assumptions about you based upon your affiliations with such organizations. If you are planning to include memberships on your resume, be guided by the following information. An example of a controversial organization might be the NRA. You don't know what the personal feelings of the employer might be regarding the NRA. If they are against it, you might never get a call for an interview, and you likely will not be told why. It's better for you to make the decision about whether or not you would like to work somewhere, rather than having that decision made for you by one bad recruiter who's turned off by your affiliations. Discrimination is illegal but difficult to prove. Be thoughtful about what you're willing to risk and how strongly you feel about your beliefs and causes before you decide to list them on your resume. Consider keeping experiences that reflect your personal beliefs off your resume to keep focus on your skills and qualifications rather than experiences that could possibly be inflammatory for the person reviewing your resume. Remember, the ultimate goal is to get the interview. Some things you should not include on your resume are as follows: your photo, salary history, the footer references available upon request, and as mentioned earlier in the presentation, personal pronouns. Other possible headings are included on this slide. Military service should be included, especially if the duties performed were related to the major you are pursuing. As mentioned earlier in this presentation, you can find examples of resumes for both technical and non-technical jobs in the Career Guide. Use this hyperlink to access the online version of the guide. Hard copies are also available in Career Services. This presentation covered the basic components of a resume. However, you may have other questions. For example, how to list military experience or how to list community or volunteer experience. Although some of these are outlined in the Career Guide, should you still have questions, please reach out to Career Services using the information provided on this slide. We are happy to help. This will conclude the presentation on writing a winning resume.